Hey guys, how are you? It's Bill from Rod and Paddle. Thought I'd take a few minutes to talk to you about a really boring subject, but it's one that pisses me off quite a bit because you see a lot of stuff written in forums and so on and about it, and people are always asking me at boat ramps and so on, how do I keep my feet wet, my legs, feet dry, how do I keep my legs dry and so on, right? And how do I plug up those holes that are in the kayak? So the holes that I'm talking about are scupper holes, and they are there specifically to strengthen the hull of the kayak. You only get them in kayaks that are a sit-on-top kayak, rotomolded sit-on-top kayak, or perhaps a sit-in kayak that's got a tank well in the back of it. It'll have one or two scupper holes so the tank well can self-drain. Now, scupper holes, what are they? I thought what we might do is we might have a quick look at a kayak and we'll talk our way through the scupper holes so that those that aren't sure can have a better understanding. Let's move the camera. Okay, so let's have a look here. So this is a scupper hole. Now, a scupper hole is something that's put in by the manufacturer, and it actually joins the hull to the upper deck. And a kayak that's say 10 to 12 foot long will have a minimum of 4 scupper holes. Right, most would have at least 6, but 4 would be the minimum that you want. Manufacturers use the scupper holes as a way of strengthening the deck. That's their primary purpose, to strengthen the deck. So when you stand in this, you don't get much flex because there is a plastic tube effectively that joins the deck to the bottom of the hull. And that's the primary purpose. And if you have a look at most kayaks, there's channels, for example, there, and the water will run down there and swirl around and out. So if you get any excess water in, so you can imagine a kayak like this, where you've got, it's fairly shallow, it's not very deep like say some of the Hobies and Old Towns and so on, but it could still hold an awful lot of water in here if it was swamped. So the idea of the scupper holes is that it can self-drain, and something like this will self-drain in probably less than 30 seconds. And you get, and the scupper holes go right through to the back. They're under the seat. They're here, which is the tank well, because that could also hold a lot of water. Now, if you turn your kayak, they'll also be in here. So this is a sealed. This compartment here isn't open into the kayak, so it has scupper holes as well. So if you're worried about things, what you can do is you can fit scupper plugs into the holes. You've got to get the right size because not all holes are the same. And the scupper plug will, the scupper plug will seal it up for you. Okay. Now, let's talk about whether you should do that or you shouldn't do that. Should you or shouldn't you use scupper plugs? That's the question. So, in my view, well, what I do is I don't use them. I will in the front hatch if I'm on in calm areas and it's not likely to get swamped. But if I'm out in rough water, the surf and so on, there's no way I'll use scupper plugs. To my mind, scupper plugs are a little bit like an ashtray on a motorbike. Superfluous, right? I expect to get wet when I'm in my kayak. I personally think it's unreasonable to think that you're going to be in a kayak fishing and you're not going to get wet. So you need to dress appropriately in order to be able to enjoy the time safely while you're on the water. If you're going to use scupper plugs, put them under your seat if you need to. Don't put them in the lowest position. So in this kayak, for example, the ones I was showing you at the front of the footwell there, that actually slightly slopes down. So if you put scupper plugs down there near where your feet are, that's where the water will pool should you get swamped by a wave from a jet ski, a boat, or just a natural wave, right? So always, if you're going to use scupper plugs, put them at a higher point. That's my view, right? If you really want to use scupper plugs and you're prepared to pay for them, you can buy self-draining scupper plugs. And what they do is they let water out, but it's at a restricted rate, and they don't let water in. So you could go down that road if you wanted to. If you wanted to save yourself some money and you've already got scupper plugs, drill an 1/8 inch hole in the bottom of it and the water will run out of it very slowly, but it will still run out of it. My view, as I said, scupper plugs, I don't like them. I use them in my front hatches in that sort of scenario when I'm trying to keep things dry. If I'm in rough conditions, I'll just throw a dry bag in there and leave the scupper plugs out. So don't be a fool, particularly if you invert the kayak and it's upside down. The last thing you want to be doing is trying to tip the kayak back up and having that whole space there full of water. It will make it very, very hard for you to A, get back into the kayak, and B, save yourself by getting all the water out. That's my opinion on scupper plugs. Like I said, ashtray on a motorbike. Do yourself a favour, understand the conditions in which you're operating and learn to dress accordingly, and you'll have a great time as well as a safe time. Catch you later.